that's definitely going to go up, because if you remember back to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers game, the 38-10 win for the Steelers, both of his touchdowns were badly underthrown by Charlie Batch. That's not going to happen with Big Ben, folks. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I definitely agree that with everything that you're saying there, and especially the point that we all said it. He was a little rusty. He did exactly what I expected. Got some touchdown passes, had a decent amount of yardage. He was a little bit rusty. Like the efficiency was 17 for 27, wasn't his best day, but for the most part, he got the job done. And like you're saying about the most complete team, I agree with that to a certain extent. They have the quarterback, they got the running back, they got the pieces there. There's definitely other teams that can challenge them out there, and the defense is really the main focus. That offense, it comes and goes sometimes, depending on where their focus is. If they can get that running game going and then Ben can make the passes, some days that's off, but usually the defense is able to pull them through. Do you have anything you want to say, Madeline?
I agree with you in the defense part. The top-notch Steeler defense that everyone knows. With Ben back, I think they're pretty much unstoppable for the rest of the year.
All right, let's turn our discussion to another Pennsylvania team and stay with quarterbacks. The Philadelphia Eagles started the season with Kevin Kolb as their quarterback, and then after his Week 1 injury, Michael Vick stepped in, played a good job, had 2 wins for him, then he got hurt against Washington. Now Kolb is back at the helm, played 1 game, they won it, then he had an impressive performance yesterday, throwing 326 yards, 3 touchdowns, and had a 133.6 quarterback rating. So do you think that Kolb stole the job back from Vick, Bill?
I necessarily don't think so. I mean, if you go based on what was reported in Philly this morning, Andy Reid doesn't know who his quarterback is, and neither do either of the quarterbacks. They just don't know. I think you've groomed Kolb from the day you've drafted him, which was 3 years ago almost, to be your quarterback. That's why you traded away Donovan McNabb, who's arguably a top 5 quarterback in the league right now. He did have a great day, but in the end, when it comes down to it, a running quarterback like Michael Vick, and in my opinion, I don't even think Michael Vick's a quarterback. He's more like a running back. Running quarterbacks win you games, but they don't win you Super Bowls. True quarterbacks and scrambling quarterbacks like Steve Young, John Elway, Ben Roethlisberger, that's what wins you Super Bowls. A running quarterback has never won a Super Bowl.
I think that a quarterback controversy is the last thing that they want down there in Philadelphia, honestly. With them guys switching in and out, they're 2-2. And with solid quarterbacks starting the game, ending the game, they're 2-0. So a quarterback controversy doesn't benefit the Eagles at all. They play in a tough NFC North conference. So the quarterback controversy probably isn't the best for them down there. Also, the injury to Deshaun Jackson is another key point to that game. Within the coming weeks, obviously, with him being hurt, that really affects the quarterback. Most of the plays that have been big plays hasn't been necessarily on the quarterback. Jeremy Maclin's example, Jeremy Maclin's 83-yard touchdown catch was the legwork was done by Maclin. It's been done by Jackson. So the quarterback play isn't necessarily all that big. It's more the receivers. So if they can keep the core together and just find a solid number 1 quarterback day in and day out, I think they'll be all right.
Yeah, one fact I want to add on there that I was just thinking about, I know Vick, when he's played, he hasn't thrown an interception yet, and like you're saying, that doesn't necessarily mean that he's playing great and he's just an outstanding quarterback. He's just making the right passes, not doing too much. He knows what he has to work with. He has good receivers out there, and he can just get the ball to them and they can get down the field, and that's all he really had to do with them. Kolb, he's been a little up and down, but yesterday I think he finally took control of this team. He went 23 for 29, had an outstanding day, and really got the job done. I want to hear what Madeline has to say about all this.
I'd like to see Kolb start next week at Tennessee. Coach Reid seemed pretty impressed with his numbers that he put up 3 touchdowns, 329 yards. I'd like to see what he can do some more this season, honestly.
Just to add to what you were saying about Vick, Vick's really settled down since his days in Atlanta. As we all know, as you were saying, running quarterback. You know, he'd get the ball first Reid was gone. He would take off running. Now in Philly, he's kind of mellowed out, calmed down, settled into a quarterback role. He's still not the pocket passing quarterback we would all, he's not the epitome of that. But the quarterback controversy is probably leaning toward Kolb right now with his efficiency against, teams like Atlanta.
One final point, quick stat, Michael Vick's career completion percentage, don't think it's over 57 yet.
That's very true. He's, maybe now he's finally settled down. He's definitely had some struggles in the past. Like Zach's saying, hopefully he's settled down some more. And I think if not in Philadelphia, he still has a long career ahead of him somewhere else. But now we're going to head into our final topic of the night, and it's the BCS ranking that was released. The first ranking has Oklahoma as the top team. They jumped over Oregon and Boise State in the polls. Now, in all the AP and USA Today polls, Boise State and Oregon are ranked 1-2. Oregon 1, Boise State 2. Now that we have this BCS ranking come out, Bill, what do you think that says about Boise State's chances of going to the national championship game?
I really think they're in trouble because of this. Before it came out, I figured they would be at the top of the rankings. They've got 2 big marquee wins over Virginia Tech and Oregon State. They do play in the WAC, which a lot of people do hold against them. But if you take a deeper look at it, Virginia Tech, they're ranked 25th in the rankings, but they lost to James Madison. So naturally, I think this has got to be a crime. Why are they even in it? Well, first of all, why are we even going by what computers tell us? It's time for a playoff system.
I think Boise State, it's really no surprise that they're at number 3. I mean, to think that they would be number 1, like, honestly, the WAC, I couldn't name many teams from the conference, to be honest. But the surprising thing is that Oklahoma jumps into number 1. Ohio State falls back to 10, which was really surprising to me. Also, another fact I'd like to bring up, TCU not in a marquee conference either. So we'll see how the top 5 plays out. If Oregon, Oklahoma, they fall, Boise State may by default fall into the 1 or 2 spot. So we'll see how it plays out. Madeline.
I agree, and I think that the BCS is BS. I think it's definitely biased, and Boise State should be ranked above Oklahoma in the polls.
Yeah, I think that definitely it's almost ridiculous to say that Boise State should be held back because of the conference they're in. And you can make all the claims you want. Well, go out there and play big teams. But I remember a couple months ago, I saw something on ESPN that it showed Boise State's recruiting, they were trying to get major teams, and the major teams just wouldn't do it. They wouldn't travel out to Boise State. They wouldn't do neutral sites. So Boise State has to settle for like the 2 games a year that they can get that are big games against and they're not even that big. They're Virginia Tech and Oregon State. 2 teams that from decent conferences, but 2 more average teams. Virginia Tech has shined in past years, but like you said, they get lost to James Madison, so they're definitely not a top-tier team. So Boise State can control its schedule only so much. Now you can say, well, they can go out there and they can try to get in a major conference, and you can make the argument that if they're in the SEC, they wouldn't win. They'd win 4 games a year maybe, but this year that really can't be said. All right, and I agree with you completely, Bill. There should definitely be a playoff system. But in the system we have right now with this year, and Boise State, this might be their last chance. They have a whole slew of seniors and quality players that will be leaving at the end of this year. So this really could be their last chance. And I don't think that a team like Oklahoma, for being in a better conference, should be able to jump ahead of Boise State and especially Oregon. I think that's another point we really need to look at is Oregon being ranked 2nd. Oregon's dominated teams all year. I believe they put up 62 points against Stanford, and Stanford was ranked in the top 10 when they faced them. So it's just really, like Bill said, why are we having computers decide this for us when we should have the teams out there on the field and some type of playoff system deciding this for us?
I mean, I don't even think it makes sense. Back on the Virginia Tech issue, they're ranked 25th in the rankings right now, but maybe I'm just crazy, but I'm using strict logic here. If they're in the rankings, shouldn't that help Boise State's schedule? It doesn't show that in the rankings, so that's what confuses me.
Exactly. I completely agree, and I think that's enough that we've said about all this. You can go on for hours and hours discussing the BCS rankings and college football. It's just something that all sports analysts can spend probably days on. But we're going to have a quick commercial break and come back with our final words. All right, and we're back. This is our final segment of the show. It's just called Final Word. We're going to give each panelist a chance to just kind of make a little statement that they have observed from the past week or past few days in sports. And I'm going to kick it to Bill, and he can start things off.
This is probably the most recent of all the statements we're going to have. Yesterday, James Harrison knocked out 2 Cleveland Browns with helmet-to-helmet hits. The first one, Josh Cribbs, hit him right in the ear hole. The second was Muhammad Massaquoi. As Zach touched earlier on the show, Deshaun Jackson was also nailed in the head by Dunta Robinson of the Atlanta Falcons. This has been a big issue for years, dating back to the concussion regulations. And now, if you get hit in the head, you're out for the game. You can't come back. But I think this is just a case of NFL officials sticking their nose where it doesn't need to be. Did they not have any idea of how fast this game is now? It's football. For For the love of God, it's football. It's a collision sport. People are going to get hurt. Injuries are part of the game. James Harrison even came out today and said, I play to hurt people, but I don't play to injure people. And I think that's a statement that says it all about the way the league is now. And I love that in a defensive player. Now for Zach's statement.
I want to touch on the NBA. It's coming up here in a few weeks. There's been a lot of talk about the Miami Heat, the Big Three, Bosh, LeBron James, Dwayne Wade. There's talks about them possibly winning 70-plus games. I personally don't foresee that happening. They have 3 superstars, 3 great NBA players, but they aren't deep. You look at the rest of the roster, and they go 3 deep. Out west, you have teams that go 6, 7, 8, 9 players deep. You know, and a long, grueling NBA season, 82 games, things are going to happen. Players are going to, you know, hurt, little injuries, little bang-ups. Dwayne Wade's already having hamstring issues. So to say that they're going to win 70-plus games and win multiple titles throughout the reign of the Big Three, I don't see it happening. I honestly don't see them really putting up much contest in the Eastern Conference, let alone winning the NBA championship this year or years to come. Madeline.
I'm going to bring it back to Slippery Rock for my final statement. I just wanted to touch on the end of the cross-country season for the boys and the girls teams. The boys team had a big meet last Saturday at Penn State. They finished 3rd among a primarily District 1 big invite. They finished 3rd out of the Division II schools, and then the girls finished 4th among the Division II schools. This Saturday, they have a big meet at Mercyhurst and Gannon. They're taking the bottom half of the team, though, letting the top runners rest up for next week's PSACs at Cal. Just give them a break. Next week should be a big meet for Brian Ulrich and Crystal Vernick. That'll be a big race for them. Go ahead, Tim.
All right, I'm going to go back to a topic we touched on a little bit earlier about the BCS. Really, I just have a statement to make to everybody out there who has any chance to do anything about it. For the BCS rankings, the computer system needs to be destroyed, and we need to go to a playoff system. Division II has playoffs. They get the top teams from each conference, go into a playoff bracket. I don't care if you do 16, 32, 64, 128 teams. However many teams you want to put in this thing, just do a playoff system. And so we can find out if Boise State can win 4 games against top-tier teams and go to a championship. If they can't, then they'll be able to figure it out on the field and not in the rankings. And that's everything we have here for our show tonight. Thank you for watching. Good night.